Welcome back. In today's video, I thought I'll talk about the Gizmo. So, just how we can rotate things, scale things, and move different sub objects or sub tools around. Now, I've got my little alien guy here, and I thought I'll use this as an example. Now, he's made up of just only two subtools. So, he's got his shorts and his eyeballs and the body. So the way we can select these subtools just by going to the subtool palette on the right here, the sub palette, which is this one here. Opening that up, and if I increase the visibility count, you can see that I have a number of different objects here for different purposes. Now we can just select, let's say, the pants if we want to select the pants or the eyes and so on. Another way we can do that is just by holding down Alt and selecting, just by clicking the subtool that we want to work on. You can sort of see the change in color of the shading. It sort of goes a bit brighter and everything else goes a little bit darker. And that just indicates to you that we can select these things. Now, let's just Alt, and I'm just going to focus on the eyes and press F. That should bring me right in. In this case, it didn't, so that's just fine. There we go. To bring up your Gizmo, you can just press W, E, or R. Now, it doesn't really matter which one you press because this is a multi-tool Gizmo, so it does everything in the one tool. There is an alternative, which is pressing Y. This is the transpose line, and that is important. If you're going to use the transpose tool, which is this one here, WER does make a difference. So I can just work with the move, the rotate, and the scale, just pressing S and R. And you can see up here in the top toolbar, we have the move, scale, and rotate. And you can see the hotkeys for those are W, E, and R. The hotkey to bring up the transpose tool is Y, and that just toggles between the two. Now, the transpose tool is the older version of this Gizmo. I don't find it very useful, but for a couple things. So the transpose tools works by clicking and dragging out a line. And it can get a little bit confusing as to what all these little circles sort of mean. But if you hover over them and look at the top left up here, you can sort of see what they do. Now, I don't prefer this method just because of it's just not clear as to what certain things do. The only thing I really use a transpose tool for is just for like a measuring stick, basically. So for example, if I wanted to see how long the arm is, I can sort of drag this down, and I can see over here on the top left, the unit sizes. Also, if I'm sort of trying to measure something, like this is the arm, and let's say I wanted the legs to be the same length, I can easily do that by just coming into here and be like, just dragging this down and be like, okay, that's roughly the same, so I'm happy with that. So it's more used as a measuring stick these days. And more often than not, I see people using this Gizmo here. So let's just work with this. Let's just go back to the eyes here. So like I said earlier, this is a multi-tool sort of Gizmo. So it doesn't matter if you're in rotate, move, or scale. It all does the same thing. So a lot of this is pretty self-explanatory. If you've sort of worked in 3D before, you know what these are. Well, we can sort of rotate, move in these directions. So we can move just by hovering and grabbing one of these axes, just like this. So pretty self-explanatory. We can sort of rotate things and so on. Just to make this process a little bit easier, I'm just going to isolate these eyes. I'm just going to press my solo here. So yeah, we can rotate these just as we would, and we can scale things out and in just a single sort of axis. So the interesting thing here as well is just remember we have these, we have the ability to sort of rotate in screen space and move within screen space as well. So if I grab these arrows that are on each corner, this will move in relative to the screen space. And likewise, if I use this outer circle here, I can rotate in screen space as well, which is quite handy. One thing that's sort of hidden here as well is this scale. So this will scale as you would expect, but if I hold down Control, you can sort of see here, if I hover over this, it will tell me down here, Control to inflate. So this sort of inflates things in and out. So this is particularly helpful when, let's say, I'm just going to quickly append a cube here. And I'm just going to solo that. Oops. Okay. So I'm going to press Control D to subdivide this a number of times. So you can see it's quite high poly now. Oops. So Shift F will bring up your wireframe. It's not that high poly, but let's go a couple more times. So where this becomes very useful is that if I bring up my masking and let's say I use a rectangular mask, so let's say something like this, and I press Control, tap in the open space, what that would do is that will, let's try that again because I didn't want my perspective to be on. So holding down Control and dragging a little box in the open space will reset your mask. All right, pressing Control and tapping in the open space will invert the mask. And now with this selection made, if I press Control and scale, I can create this sort of effect where I scale inwards, which is very handy for creating these sort of indents, these sort of sci-fi looking pieces. If I press Q, it will make that go away. So you can sort of see we can create these sort of pieces quite easily. So I can come into here and do another thing as well. Let's say we do something like that. Press Control, invert, bring my move. In this case, I probably would add to this. I probably could easily just move that out and scale that in, but I can move that out and hold down Control and then scale that in. So a little thing with that is that you can get these sort of artifacting, so something to be aware of. But with this gizmo, if I wanted to move this out, you sort of noticed before as I scaled in, it didn't really do what I wanted because the gizmo is sitting in the center of this object. There is a couple ways we can fix this. The easiest way to do that is to hold down Control and just tap on the surface we want this gizmo to go to. So that was correction there. I need to hold down Alt and then that unlocks the gizmo. And if I tap anywhere, it will sort of jump to that area, right? So that's a great way to make the gizmo come to a specific section like that. So it will jump and it will sort of snap to that surface. So if I had it on an angle, let's say I rotate this like that, and then I move the gizmo somewhere. If I hold down Alt and tap on that surface, it sort of orients itself to that surface, which is quite a nice feature, right? So I remask that out. So now that we got this gizmo onto the surface, I can hold down Alt and reset its rotation here. So it's back at the world space. And then I can just go ahead and do what I need to do, like bring this out, scale this down if I wanted to, and so on, right? If I wanted to, I can also hold down Alt and this will unlock the gizmo. And unlocking the gizmo will allow me to move the gizmo or do whatever I need to the gizmo without affecting the surface. And I can bring that all the way down to the bottom here. And then if I release Alt, it will relock itself. And then I can create little features like this. So a great way of using the gizmo. There are other buttons here that you can use. So this will sort of reset where the gizmo sits. So this will go make the gizmo go all the way back to the center mass of the subtool. This one here will reset its sort of location to where it was. So where it's unmasked area, I guess. So this will bring it to the unmasked section. And this one here, I find it not too useful. So this is, let's say, for example, we have a position where this gizmo is perfectly, we just want it there for some reason. If we pin it and let's say we move this object across, the gizmo will jump back to that position, right? So it might be useful in some cases. I find that I never really do that, but it's there. Right, so you will notice that we have this cog at the end of the list. Now this here is where we can access things like our deformers. It's bugging out a little bit for me, so let's try to get back into this. Okay, so we got our deformers here, and these are quite handy when it comes to just, blocking things out or creating interesting shapes. So let's pick something here. Let's say the twist tool. So straight off the bat, you get these sort of cones everywhere. Now, it's quite tricky as to what these things do. So the best thing to do here is just to hover over the cone itself. And you can see in the middle here, it tells you what it sort of does. So if I want to twist over here, see, we can twist from this angle, or if I grab this, I can twist it from this side, and I can easily get some interesting shapes that would be very hard to sculpt manually. If I wanted to, let's say I'm happy with this, all I need to do is press the cog again and go back to the menu, and that will and press accept. And that would accept that deformation, and I can go back to just my general sculpting here. Okay, so there's quite a few in here that are very useful for blocking things out. The other one that I find very useful is the deformer. This is like your lattice tool or your FFD. This just allows you to sort of drag these little points around and then deform the object with this sort of low poly cage. Now you can see that the cone icon or the cone interface is very convoluted here. We have these stack of cones, and all you have to do is just hover over this and you can sort of work out what these things do. So this just reduces the lattice. The next one sort of increases the smoothness, and this one is sort of mirroring across. So a lot of powerful things can be done here in the gizmo. It's not just a thing for rotating or scaling. Well, it is, but there's a lot of other things that you can do with this. But another thing I forgot is you can also mask certain sections using like a fall off. If I hold down control whilst having the gizmo active, and I can sort of drag out this this sort of masking, right? Not very useful in this example, though. If I was to append here, let's say a cylinder, and I'll go to this cylinder. Let's just hide that. Let's just scale this out a couple of times, or and subdivide this. If I hold down Control and drag that out, I can drag out this cylinder, or this sort of fall off type thing on this cylinder here. And this is very useful when it comes to posing. So I can hold down Alt and bring this gizmo over to this area here. Just make sure I have sticky off. And then I can rotate this and pose this area. Now, another thing that I almost forgot to say as well is that we can quite easily blur and sharpen out the mask that we just created. So if I hold down Control and click in that mask itself, you can see how it's sort of blurring out. And if I hold down Alt, that will sharpen it up, right? So I can blur this out. And this doesn't mean, this is not a thing that you can only do when you have the gizmo on, by the way. This is just something that you'll do with the gizmo often, because you'll quite often pose with this gizmo to do like quick dirty poses like this. So holding down Control will soften out that mask, which is quite handy for this sort of this sort of quick posing or bending of shapes and things like that.